Use these 10 dark psychology tactics at your own risk, because they break people. You might think you would spot manipulation easily. You might even feel confident you're too smart for it. But the truth is, the most dangerous tactics don't feel like manipulation at all. They feel like trust, connection, and even love, until it's too late. Watch until the end, because missing even one of these could leave you vulnerable to someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart. These tactics are extremely dangerous. You should not use them. We are showing you so you can recognize when someone is using them against you. Let's begin. 1. Mirror their insecurities, then subtly magnify them. A manipulator begins by observing a person's hidden fears and insecurities. They watch closely to see what makes someone uncomfortable, what compliments they deflect, or what sensitive topics trigger nervous reactions. This initial stage is purely observational, gathering emotional data without alerting the target. Once they have identified the weaknesses, the manipulator mirrors those insecurities back in subtle ways. They might make a teasing remark, a doubtful question, or a casual comment that seems harmless but pokes directly at the sensitive spot. The goal is to make the victim believe these doubts are natural thoughts arising from within themselves. As time passes, the magnified insecurities begin to define the victim's self-image. They internalize the negativity, trusting it more than their own past confidence. Eventually, the manipulator gains greater control because the victim's self-esteem has been quietly dismantled from the inside out. 2. Build rapid trust, then weaponize their vulnerabilities. A manipulator fast-tracks intimacy by creating a false sense of immediate deep connection. They open up quickly, share personal stories, and invite you to share your own vulnerabilities much earlier than would naturally occur. This manufactured closeness lowers your defenses without you even realizing it. After you expose your fears, regrets, and traumas, the manipulator stores this information like ammunition. They won't always use it immediately. Instead, they wait for moments when they need leverage, during conflicts, to induce guilt, or to gaslight you into compliance using your own words against you. Eventually, you realize the very things you shared in confidence have been twisted into weapons. The relationship, once built on supposed openness and honesty, becomes a trap where every private fear you revealed is turned into a tool for emotional control. 3. Give intermittent validation. Train them to be addicted. Manipulators understand that predictable affection builds security, but unpredictable affection builds dependency. They initially flood their target with praise, affection, and intense attention, making the target feel euphoric and valued beyond anything they've experienced before. Then, without warning, they withdraw the affection. Coldness replaces warmth. Praise turns into criticism or indifference. Because the positive reinforcement was so powerful, the victim doesn't rationally leave. Instead, they work harder to regain the high they once felt, unknowingly becoming emotionally addicted. This push-pull dynamic creates emotional chaos. The victim associates the manipulator with both intense pleasure and intense pain, which paradoxically strengthens the emotional bond. The inconsistency keeps them trapped, always hoping the good version will return. 4. Create scarcity. Make them fear, losing you at any moment. In healthy relationships, presence and affection feel stable. In manipulative relationships, scarcity is a weapon. The manipulator offers their attention selectively, showing intense interest one day and total detachment the next, for reasons the victim cannot predict or understand. By making their affection feel rare and conditional, the manipulator forces the victim into a constant state of anxiety. They live in fear of making a mistake, walking on eggshells to avoid triggering withdrawal. Scarcity rewires the victim's mind to treat the relationship as something to constantly be earned. Over time, the victim begins sacrificing their own needs, opinions, and boundaries just to maintain the connection. Scarcity keeps them locked in a pattern of self-abandonment and desperate appeasement, without realizing they've been conditioned to accept emotional instability as normal. 5. Use strategic silence. Let their mind torture itself. Rather than engaging in direct conflict, a manipulator often opts for strategic silence. When upset or wanting to control a situation, they withdraw all communication. No messages, no explanations, no closure. The silence is not passive. It is an active tool designed to provoke anxiety. During this silence, the victim is left alone to spiral mentally. They replay conversations, question their actions, and desperately seek ways to fix whatever they believe they did wrong. The manipulator doesn't need to say anything. The victim's own mind becomes the instrument of their punishment. Eventually, the victim learns that any disagreement or independent thought risks triggering this unbearable emotional coldness. Strategic silence becomes a training method, conditioning the victim to self-censor and prioritize the manipulator's comfort at all costs. 6. Overwhelm with micro-compliments, then withdraw coldly. In the beginning, a manipulator often uses small, frequent compliments to create a strong emotional attachment. They praise your smile, your ideas, your style, noticing details others might overlook, making you feel uniquely appreciated and deeply connected to them. Once the target begins depending on this steady stream of approval, the manipulator abruptly stops. The warmth is replaced by indifference or criticism. The compliments that once felt abundant vanish, leaving the victim confused, anxious, and desperate to win back the lost affection. This tactic exploits emotional dependency. The manipulator makes themselves the sole source of validation, then starves the victim of it, knowing the withdrawal will trigger obsessive behavior. The victim chases the early highs of the relationship, often unaware they've been intentionally trained to do so. 7. Agree first, then slowly undermine their self-image. At first, manipulators often position themselves as allies. They agree with your opinions, encourage your goals, and validate your perspectives. This initial agreement builds trust and disarms natural skepticism, making the victim feel seen and supported. Gradually, however, they begin introducing small seeds of doubt. They question your abilities in subtle ways, hint at your flaws, and point out areas where you may have misjudged situations. The undermining is slow, almost imperceptible, and carefully masked as concern or constructive feedback. Over time, the victim's self-image fractures. They begin to doubt their instincts, their competence, and even their worth. The manipulator becomes the primary source of truth and validation, deepening the victim's dependence and weakening their ability to think independently. 8. Reveal deep secrets about them publicly. Manipulators often encourage their targets to share vulnerable information under the illusion of intimacy and trust. Once these secrets are known, they are used as weapons, revealed in public or social settings under the guise of humor or harmless teasing. The exposure isn't accidental. It's a calculated move to destabilize the victim's sense of safety. By turning private pain into public entertainment, the manipulator asserts dominance, showing that they control not only the victim's private self, but also their public reputation. After such betrayals, the victim often feels humiliated yet confused. When confronted, the manipulator downplays the hurt, gaslighting the victim into believing they are too sensitive. The long-term effect is deep emotional isolation and mistrust of others. 9. Frame yourself as their only safe haven. Then redefine safe. A manipulator often creates the illusion that they are the only person who truly understands or accepts the victim. They position themselves as the savior, the one safe place in a hostile world, cultivating deep loyalty and emotional dependence. Once the emotional bond is firmly established, the definition of safe subtly changes. It begins to mean compliance, silence, self-sacrifice. Disagreeing, asserting needs, or showing independence is reframed as betrayal or abandonment. This redefinition traps the victim in a false loyalty. They fear losing the only safe relationship they believe they have, even when the relationship itself has become the primary source of emotional pain and suppression. 10. Disappear after peak emotional highs. Leave them starving for closure. Manipulators often create intensely emotional highs, experiences that feel meaningful, intimate, unforgettable. These moments are engineered to make the victim feel deeply connected and emotionally invested. Then, without warning, they disappear. Calls go unanswered, plans are canceled, messages are ignored. The sudden absence following the emotional peak creates a craving for closure, understanding, and reconnection that the victim becomes desperate to satisfy. This craving is intentional. Starving someone for emotional closure ensures they remain fixated on the manipulator, replaying memories and clinging to hope. It keeps the victim emotionally tied to the fantasy, not the reality, long after the relationship itself has crumbled. Dark psychology tactics work not because they are obvious, but because they are hidden inside what looks like love, trust, or friendship. Recognizing them doesn't just make you cautious, it makes you powerful. You don't have to live in confusion or fear. You can spot the games for what they are and protect your heart, mind, and future. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.